And he is an internet marketer, personal development coach, mentor, internationally known speaker. He has made over $50 million in personal sales. In this interview, we got to know him personally as well as his entrepreneurial experience and journey. And we got to know about all of the challenges that he went through, both in business and in his personal life. He also a good friend of Alice. Alice, would you like to say a few things about this interview and what you can recall from it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's always great to talk to Ty for sure. And I think our conversation with him really highlighted a lot of the amazing things about him. And I bet, a lot of people watching this are familiar with Ty. And whenever I mention his name, people are always like, oh, yeah, I love Ty. I love his social media posts. I love this. He is a very inspirational type of person. And I think that the themes that we talked about, people can relate to. We talked about really sticking with something. That's the great thing about Ty is that he's very focused. When he wants to accomplish something, he works on that. He does not have this, or he maybe it does to some degree, but not so much the shiny object syndrome that many of us suffer from. He's super focused. And I've always admired that about him, and that comes out there. We also talked about real estate investing with him, including your kids in your business. He has kids that are growing up and he's involved them in different things. We also talked about his health struggles, and he has a life threatening medical condition where they told him that that he may not live past a certain age. And he has absolutely refused to take that as fact. And he just keeps going.
Yeah, I would like to also second the fact that people in our community actually do love Thai. And yet, when we played the premiere the other day live for everybody, we had a lot of hearts and a lot of lovely comments mentioned about Thai. And a lot of people are looking forward to watch this interview. And I'm glad that we finally edited and put it together so that you can watch it right now. Anything else you would like to add before we start that?
Should we remind them that they can go if we're going to get into the interview with Ty, but if they are looking to improve their marketing skills, we do have free courses at ekithubuniversity.com. Be sure to drop by after watching the podcast. If you feel inspired, we also have a community there if you'd like to discuss the episode or things that you learned, and whether it's about marketing or life or just, whatever thoughts you have, we're there for you.
Yeah, definitely. Whether you are a new entrepreneur who just got inspired by this interview to get started with your entrepreneurial journey, or you're a seasoned entrepreneur with intermediary or advanced level, you will find courses at eKidHub University that will help you in your journey. With that being said, let's watch our first episode with Ty Cohen. Hello, Ty. Welcome to Lifestyle Self-Made. How are you today?
Man, I am doing fantastic, even better now that I'm with you too. I'm looking down at Alice over here and I'm looking up at you, Yusuf. So if you guys see me doing, that's what it is there. But yeah, I'm doing great. I'm feeling good. It's a great
Awesome.
day, great morning so far. I'm ready to rock.
Awesome. We're glad to have you here. What brought you to entrepreneurship?
Good question. I just wanted more. And I knew that having a 9 to 5, I worked really hard. I had one real job in life and I worked really hard at that job and it didn't really move the needle much. And I said, look, if I want to do some things, meaning live in a different environment, drive a different type of car, have a different type of home, eat on the other side of a menu, go to different types of restaurants, travel to different places. The 9 to 5 that I had, which was a good one at that time by standards, still wasn't going to get me there. So that was it.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
you
what
were.
was your first entrepreneurial journey, experience, or project?
Yeah, man. So, like I said, I had one job. I started working that job when I was 14. I gave them just over 9 years of my life. Quit when I was 23. It was working at Walgreens Pharmacy, and I'm sure you guys have a international audience, so I'll explain. Walgreens is a nationally recognized brand here in the United States, and I started working there as a part-time summer job. My mom was super smart. She was like, you know what? You're going to go in and do something in the summer instead of playing video games. And so I did that. Hated it initially, hated the job for about a year of being there. And then I started as a stock person, which is basically the individual that would stock the shelves. Then I got promoted in a sense to someone that was working in a warehouse and then unloading trucks and then as a cashier and then as an assistant manager and then as a manager when my last couple of years there. And it was just my mom being like, look, dude, you're not going to sit around all summer and you got to get a job. And that was it. And I ended up loving the darn thing. I ended up hating it for that first year. So I was the smallest kid there. uh, And I was determined. I had this Napoleon complex. No, nothing against anyone that's short, but I was short. And I'm like, I'm going to beat the heck out of everyone else that's bigger than me, that's brawnier than me, that's taller than me. And I'm going to work harder than them. I'm going to work longer than them. And my supervisors saw that I put the time and the effort in. So guess what? They gave me more work.
Mhm.
And that caused me to not really like it. I'm like, it's fair. I'm the smallest guy there.
You're doing too good of a job. But I think that's
That was
really
it.
great because what I've seen about you, and I know our mutual friend Ron Douglas always comments
Yeah.
about you that you really stick with things. You stay focused, and that's a real like in your business we've seen that, but that story about your employment also like that you're loyal to that, and you just worked at it, and luckily you ended up somewhere else because that doesn't sound like that would be a satisfying job. What about when you were a kid? What do you think about being an entrepreneur or
I did. I actually did. So here's the thing. And so remember, I said I stuck with that job for 9 years. I actually did. I ended up liking that job. And here's the reason why I liked it. I liked it because I like people, right? I like variety in people. I like different ethnic groups. I like different ages. I especially learned to love, like speaking to, I'm 19 at that time. So if you were 30, you were ancient to me. So I loved speaking to the older 30-year-olds and then the 40 and the 50 and 60 and 70-year-olds that came in. I was able to get so many life lessons from them. Like I would literally be in Yaos talking to these 70 and 80-year-olds who would just share things. And I thought that it was the coolest thing ever. So that job was bittersweet for me when I ended up quitting it, but I ended up quitting it because I had ended up starting one of my first businesses at 19. I had ended up getting the business to a point where it was doing really well by the time I was 20. Now here I am, 20. I've got this business that's doing well. And what I mean is I'm doing about $30,000 a month with this business, selling Barbie dolls and old G.I. Joes from the 60s and Disney wind-ups and collectibles and Mego dolls and all of this stuff. Now here I am, I'm 20 years old. I've got a business that's successful. I'm still working at Walgreens. Here's the reason why. Because even though I was successful with it, I didn't believe that you could have this independence. And there's people that are here right now that are probably watching this thing, and you've got this thing and you're holding on to something else because the security is in that other thing. Right. So I had my mom and I had other people telling me, look, you're invested in the stock purchase program with Walgreens. You've got medical, right? You've got insurance, you've got all of this other stuff, right? And I'm like, but I'm making 30,000 a month here. At Walgreens, I was making probably about 3,000, 3,500 a month. So 10 times more, but I'm holding on to the security. So it took me 3 years to quit that job because of that. I would go in and my supervisor's name was Jerry Press. So I would go in and I would tell her, Miss Press, I'm going to quit this job. I'm quitting. I'm giving my 2 weeks. And they would say, Ty, could you just hold on? Could you just
oh,
stick
and
with her? And me being a nice guy and not wanting to really quit because of the uncertainty, right? So one of the most basic human needs is certainty. So not having that certainty, I'm like, yes, thank God she asked me to stay on again because I really didn't want to quit. You get it? So that was it, right? So it's sometimes we'll have these things in our lives where we know we should be going in this direction, but the hardest thing to do is to cut off everything else that's keeping us over here. Even though it's a Pareto principle, right? The 80% could be over here and it's just this 20%.
yeah,
I recognize myself there as well. It took me a while
like you.
to quit my job because of the security, although I was making more from my entrepreneurial projects. But for some reason, I did not feel comfortable to cut the ties with my job and focus on my business alone until later on I summed up enough courage to do it. So for the people that find themselves in that predicament, what would you recommend to them?
You know what? I would actually really listen to your heart. I would listen to your heart because Steve Jobs used to talk about this, right? It never lies, it never fails you. And I think what happens is as we get older, we start to get a little bit more reasonable. We start to tune out our heart. But if you listen to, there's times when I know I should have left and I'm listening to my heart in a sense of, but they need me. There's no one else that can do the job as well as I can here. The same battles that we have as entrepreneurs. I can't hire someone because there's no one else that can do it as well as I can. They're not going to. So those same issues there and listening to your heart, but also not listening to people who are not in the position that you want to be in. Because oftentimes it's the people, nothing against the people that love you because they love you and they don't want to see you fall. They don't want to see you screw up, right? So they're like, there's security there and there's foreignness to it. Very few people that you may know in your immediate circles, family members, right? Your friends, your neighbors, that are going to go in and take that leap and quit their job that they've been at for 9 years to just do this thing where they're 100% responsible for. So I was
Being
listening to them.
exhausted though. Like, weren't you
What's that?
tired? Were you
What's
not
that?
tired? Working too hard.
Say that
Tired?
again.
Well, you can't hear me. Can you hear me? It's
I can hear you, yeah, but I
okay.
think
I said you must have been exhausted though. You were working so hard, or you just had this endless energy.
yeah, no, it wasn't at all. I'm
Really?
smiling. I'm smiling because my mom used to always say, "You need to get some rest. You need to go in
Oh,
and rest." And I used to be like, "Rest for what? Like, I don't feel a bit tired."
and
But
you
no,
had
it's
children at this time, or one child, or
no, I hadn't had any kids at the
okay,
time.
okay,
I didn't have my first kid until I was
okay.
27. I was
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, yep. But it goes look, it's doing what you love. I think that when you do the things that you enjoy, like I enjoyed working at Walgreens Pharmacy, those last 4 or 5 years, I really started to enjoy it because of the people that I got to work with and the people that came into the store, right? Those conversations that I had. I still use those conversations and some of those insights to this day. And then working the business that I had, it was a company that I formed called Planet Toys. And me and my younger brother, Michael, I lived in Connecticut and we would drive up and down the East Coast going to these events and seminars and conventions and we would set up shops on the weekends. That was like the ultimate fun because I got a chance to talk about my passion and people paid me for it. So I'm like, can we do this again next week and the next week and the next week and the next week? So when I think that's the importance of things, right? Is finding something that you love and then just going hard at it because that's where the energy comes in.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I like you. There's another parallel for you too. You said one
Mhm.
thing that kept you at your job as well was you like talking to different people and you got to meet like interesting people. And I also maybe asked, do you know, like that?
Yeah,
I
you're
would
right.
be tired. I don't know how you guys do it. I need lots of downtime.
Yeah, for me, for my case, it was I worked at a hotel, 5-star hotel, where a lot of diplomats and a lot of celebrities stayed. So there was always excitement at my job. And that was one of the reasons why I held on to it for so long. But then at the same time, because the online world, you're pretty much communicating with people, but it's through apps and through platforms. It's not, you don't get to meet them. So because of it, I held on to that job for a little bit longer than maybe I should have. But yeah, were your family supportive when you decided to quit your job?
I really didn't tell them, to be honest with you. Not that I didn't think of telling them, but it was just like, look, I'm going to do this and I'm the one that calls the shots. That's how it was. When you're younger, you're super arrogant, right? You're just like, you can just do anything. And I'm just like, what am I? I would tell my mom and dad, of course. But even if they said no, I was at this point where I still was going to go in and do it. I just had to find out. I was talking to, I have a podcast that I'm also going to have Alice on as a guest. I was talking to my audience this morning. I'm like, look, my personal philosophy is the worst thing that could ever happen to you in life is that you die and you still have these things in you that you want to do. So at that age, I was still thinking, man, what if I'm just touching like barely scratching the surface of what I want to do in this business because I'm giving 44 hours a week to Walgreens. As a manager, got paid on a stipend, right? We had to put in a minimum of 44 hours. So I would work 44 to 50 hours there. And then I would come home and work on my business till 1, 2 in the morning. I'm like, man, what if I really went hard on this thing? And then what if I didn't? Like if I didn't, that would be the most depressing thing ever. So I had to cut ties. And it was like, regardless of who said no or whose opinion, at this point, I got to jump and I got to find out what's going to happen.
What's the biggest benefit of you not having a traditional job?
I hate having people telling me what to do. So me and my wife get into battles sometimes, even after 23 years of being together. It's just simply that. Look, I hate having people tell me what to do, that could be a problem sometimes as well, because you do need to be able to take guidance from people. But and the other biggest benefit is, look, I have something called sickle cell anemia, and it's a blood disorder that I was born with. It's caused me to be hospitalized hundreds of times. I've had to learn how to walk all over again because I've had 2 total hip replacements. My first one before I was 30. I've had to learn how to use this arm all over again. I've had just so many different things go on. And one of the most hurtful things for me was having a sickle cell anemia crisis. And oftentimes you wake up 3, 4, 5 in the morning with these crises where your chest's on fire, your whole body's on fire, and you just have to go to the emergency room. One of the most hurtful things was for me to have to call my boss at 6 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, and I was responsible for opening the store. So I had to be there at 7 o'clock in the morning sometimes to open a store, and to call her and say, "Hey, Miss Press, I'm not feeling well. I'm going to the hospital, or I'm in the hospital right now, or I'm in the emergency room." Because there's sometimes where I got the sense where they thought maybe I was lying, and you never know. Maybe it's just me tripping, right? Sometimes
Yeah.
what we think is true is often not true sometimes, right? So that was painful for me. And it was one of the reasons why I had to become an entrepreneur. See, sometimes we have to become an entrepreneur for whatever our own reasons are. And for me, that was one of the reasons. The other reason was to get my family, my mom out of a hood. We grew up in a really terrible area. The other reason was because I just knew, like I said at the very beginning, that there's things that I could not accomplish working for someone else, having this 9 to 5. The other reason was freedom, freedom and options, having the options of being able to do something as simple as picking out a shirt that you want and being able to say yes, like hell yes to that shirt because you can afford it, whether it's $5 or it's $500, right? So having the options, having the freedom. The other thing is, once you start to have more freedom and options, you open yourself up to more things. You get to travel more. You get to speak to other types of people. You get to experience different things. And now with those experiences come more desires, more wants, right? So as you start to climb this ladder, you start to see more things. And as you push yourself and you start to tap into more of your potential, you realize that, look, the sky is the limit. The only limit is literally between this thing right here. So that was part of it there. And it's every single day I'm thinking like, Ty, man, what am I being too comfortable in right now? As a matter of fact, on my bathroom mirror, I have in glass marker, be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Mm.
And underneath that, question everything. And underneath that, I've got one of my favorite sayings by Wayne Dyer, the late Wayne Dyer, who says, be open to everything and attached to nothing. So that means being open to the different version of you, the next better version of you, right? And not being attached to this version of you that's accomplished something or that might be stuck in this identity, whatever that identity is, the identity of you being a mom, the identity of you being a dad, the identity of you being Spanish or Black or a male or female or young or old, or all of these limitations that can stop us from getting to that next level. So being open to everything and attached to nothing, because attachments sometimes hold us back more than anything.
Yeah.
Those attachments that we have to maintain because it's been part of our identity so long that we really forget who the heck we are underneath. So
Yeah.
that's
I want to ask a little bit about the sickle cell anemia and like how just listening to you talk about how learn to walk again. You learned this, like that is just so much you. Like I think a lot of people couldn't do that. I remember like that maybe they said you weren't going to live like
yeah,
for too long and you showed them that they were wrong.
right.
Indeed. And
It's
this is
tremendous.
something you still deal with today, right? Because I think I saw that you were in the hospital not too long ago. If I
A couple
remember.
months ago. Yeah, a
Yeah.
couple months ago. Yep. Yeah, it is a very real thing. There's over there's something like 400,000 babies worldwide that die each year because of them having sickle cell anemia that die before they reach the age of 3 years old. So
Wow.
babies from birth to that's a lot of people there. There's
What
100,000 people in the US. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, US.
you said. I was just gonna ask, what causes it? Is it like a genetic kind of thing,
It's
or
genetic. Yep.
okay?
It is totally genetic. So you get a gene from your mom, you get one from your dad, and boom, there you go. You're the lucky lottery winner there. And there's so many different complications to it. But look, part of it is also, and I speak to people that have sickle cell and also other illnesses, and tell them, look, you want to be smart, and you listen to your doctors, you listen to your physicians, but you also listen to yourself. And you
Mhm.
don't, it goes back to the identity, right? Because you can create this identity of I'm limited, most people with sickle cell anemia are super limited in what they do, right? The doctors will tell you don't exercise. The doctors will tell you don't work, right? The doctors will tell you you're not going to live long. So they put these limitations on you. And as someone of authority that's speaking this over you, if you don't have a lot of power over yourself, then it's hard to pull away from that. Right. So I will tell people, just like I tell entrepreneurs or people that want to become entrepreneurs, the first starting point is you and the stories that you're telling yourself. What do you truly believe about yourself? And what do you believe about what's possible for you? And you start to stack those things, all of your bonuses. When I say bonuses, are things that you've been able to push through. If you are someone who's never had a business before and you go and you get your first customer, you need to write that down. You write that date down. You write how you felt about it. You put it in a box. I've got a box here of all of my accomplishments, and these are accomplishments that go back for years. Because what happens is, look, this is the first house that I bought for my mom, and I paid cash for this thing.
Oh,
So all of these, and this is my wife. Oh, this is actually me and my wife meeting Tony Robbins. I don't know if you guys can see that.
Yeah,
This is Tony Robbins and his wife Sage. This is my wife and I getting married here, right? So all of these little things that I now have as reminders. This is us donating to St. Jude's, right? So we donate every single month. All of these little things that are reminders, and there's tons of them that's in this box, but I can go back to whenever my self-confidence starts to wane, which happens to everyone.
mhm.
Whenever imposter syndrome starts to sneak in, which happens to everyone. Whenever the doubt starts to sneak in, which happens to everyone, and you start to think, oh my God, I can't do a podcast like this. Alice can do it because she's got blonde hair and she's got these cool little glasses, and Yusuf can get he gets to work at this five-star hotel, and all of these dividers that we create. Then you can go back to your box and you can say, you know what? I am a badass because remember I did this. I got my first sale. Remember I did this. I walked for 5 miles. I did this 10K. I never thought that I could do it. Remember I asked my significant if she would marry me or if he would marry me. And they said, yes, that was one of the most daunting times of my life. So our memory works to a point where it doesn't serve us as well as it should. It'll remember all the things that we screwed up at, all of the girls that said no, all of the times we failed, right? But it hardly remembers all of the good things. So that's why we have to help our memory by keeping these reminders, so we can go back with, oh my, are you serious? I did this. If I did this thing right now that I'm looking forward to is a piece of cake,
Yeah, I love
right?
that.
So
I need a
that's it.
box. I mean, I photos and stuff like that, but collecting those little things, that's great.
yeah. I use like a journal to write down like the most important. I don't journal every day, but I write down like the most important events. But I'm also like a visual learner, so and so maybe I should have like pictures in a box somewhere, because that could probably help me to remember things and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
you mentioned you grew up in the hood. Whereabouts and how was it growing up there?
Yeah, so I grew up in, and I want you guys to Google this because when I tell you these two things, they're going to seem like total opposites. So I grew up in Connecticut, but I grew up in Bridgeport, Connecticut. So Google Bridgeport, Connecticut, and then Google Father Panic Village. So that was the housing project at the time, Father Panic
Mhm.
Village, and you'll see how notorious this place was at the time. So we grew up in Building 8, Father Panic Village. I lived there until my early teens, I want to say. And it was a place where, look, state troopers were afraid to come into, police officers were afraid to come into. Unfortunately, an officer actually lost his life going into that project there, right? That's how bad it was. Shootings every single day. You would see drugs being dealt, heroin and crack. And this is in the 80s when this stuff was really bad at that time. And because we were so close to proximity to New York, right, we're 30 minutes away, you get a lot of element that comes into New York and you get a lot that goes out. And then we were right by Boston and we just had in New Jersey. So you just had this nice hodgepodge of things there. So that was my reality growing up. Think about this. Consider being 12 years old and being told that you're not going to live past the age of 17 because this disease that you have, most people don't live long with it. So 12 years old, I'm hearing that. I'm hearing my doctor and my mom talk about that outside of my hospital door as I was hospitalized because I was in the sickle cell anemia crisis and I had been in the hospital, Yale Haven Hospital, for 3 weeks at that time. So I'm hearing that outside my door. Then I get home, and a few months later, my older sister, Gwen, who also out of 6 children, it was just me and her who had sickle cell anemia, she dies from sickle cell anemia in her early 20s. So now this becomes even more of a reality for me. And growing up in this neighborhood where I'm at, where always destruction. So I'm like, I'm not going to live long. I'm going to live to what, 17, 18 years old. I might as well go have fun. So taking part in a lot of destructive things that were not beneficial to myself or to other people, because that's the reality. So I think that's why it's so important for children, you shape their realities. Because if you're not intentional, just as adults, if we're not intentional shaping our realities, there's outside forces that will shape it for us, right? Napoleon
Yeah.
Hill talked about this in his book, Outwitting the Devil, where we go through these daily routines where we're just drifting every single day doing the same thing, unless we're intentional about setting up our environments as far as where we're working, setting up our environments as far as who we're talking to, the things that we're putting into our mental space, the things that we're putting into our body. It's super, super important. I know I got off track with your initial question a little bit, but I wanted to carry that over so that people could see the importance of the environment altogether, good or
So
bad.
what it sounds like maybe also so you went down that path, but what kind of turned you around? Was it your mom making you get a job or what was it that
No,
you
because
changed your mindset?
that was a good question. I thought I was slick as a kid. So you ever have this kid who, that's why I always tell my wife, I'm like, the good kid that comes by, he's got the smile on, he looks good. You got to watch that guy. Because that was me. I thought I was slick. And I'm thinking, my parents have no idea the stuff that I'm into here because I was working early at an early age, but I was also doing other things that were not conducive to me. The thing that changed me around, to be honest with you, was reading a book by Les Brown. This is one of his first books. It probably had to be his very first book. My mom and dad were separated, and my father was smart enough to come by the house every weekend and pick me and my younger brother up to take us to church. And my father was a blue collar guy. So he worked as a construction worker. That was his main job, his 40-hour-a-week job. He also was a taxi driver and he also was a security guard. So this guy, as far as I knew, entrepreneurship, personal development was nowhere in his space. So as we're coming from church one day, we're sitting in the back of his car, old Volkswagen Beetle, one of these beat up cars. And I see this book hanging out of a back seat. I'm sitting in the back seat and there's this book in the back pocket. And I just pick it up and I start reading it. And I'm 17 years old at this time, around the same time where the doctor said I probably will be checking out. And I'm reading this book and he says, look, if you can look up, you can get up. Never let someone else's opinion of you become your reality. And he's got all of these little things in here and I'm reading this and I had never had any type of exposure to personal development. I had never had any type of exposure to self-improvement at all. And I fell in love with this in the 20-minute ride that it took us from getting to church to my house. And I'm reading this book and I just couldn't put it down. And instead of asking my dad, like, hey, dad, what is this about? Like, why do you even have this book in your car? Because this didn't fit, right? It just didn't fit at all. I ended up putting it under my shirt, stole it instead of asking him, took it home, and I stayed up till 1, 2 o'clock just reading the rest of the book. And that was the first paradigm shift for me. it was being turned on to personal development. And more importantly, it was reading this from someone that looked like me, right? Les Brown being an African American. And I was just the words and the way that he articulated things. And then just seeing him on the cover, I'm just blown away. I'm like, this is intense. And that was the beginning right there. That was
Have
it.
you met him? Have you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Les actually wrote the forward to my book over here.
Oh, yeah. Oh, nice.
Isn't that insane how things come back full circle? So he ended up, I met him through Alicia Little, who Alice.
Yeah. I'm going to write Alicia's name down. We need to talk to her too.
You need to talk to her. Absolutely. Yes, she'd be a beautiful person to talk to. Things come back full circle, right? They come around full circle. So he wrote the forward to that book, and I ended up sharing that story with him as well. And he was pretty impressed with it. But look, the direction of our lives, we never know where they're going to go. And I think the best thing that we could do is we could set this end target and then know that we're going to get there, but not be so attached to the route
Yeah.
that's going to happen. So that's it.
I love that. Moving fast forward back to modern day, another thing, a cool thing I've seen you do that I think comes from your entrepreneurship is you guys have done some real estate investing.
Yeah.
Is that right?
We've done a lot. Yeah, we've done a lot. And this year we're going into even more. So real estate goes back to, so here's the story behind real estate, right? So it goes back to exposing yourself to things, right? So what we'll do is we'll go buy these properties in areas that are nice destination areas where we would want to go in and live and travel and buy these really cool properties. So that also we're exposing our kids to things. So we're exposing them to different things. We're also setting them up for the future so that there's this generational wealth that comes into play because they may not want to be digital marketers. They may not want to own a publishing company, right? They may want to do some other things. And then also it shows them that there's multiple streams of income measures when you go in and you actually look for things, right? So we'll take them to buy properties. We'll take them to go look at properties. We'll take them to speak to our attorneys. We'll take them to speak to the real estate agents, the bankers, right? All of these things that I didn't have exposure to. Because again, the exposure opens you up to more and more possibilities. And it normalizes things. So it normalizes things for them.
And do they like it or do they say, come on, Dad, that's been done?
Yeah, it depends. My son Tyler, the 19-year-old, he's really into real estate. My daughter Summer, she's 16. So it's something that she's seen all her life. So to her, it's just a normal thing. Our oldest kids, they're indifferent, but that's what it is. It's like you put them in front of something and then now at least they have the options.
Yeah.
They have the options. Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead. No, you good.
How was the rise in interest rate? What kind of impact has it had on the U.S. real estate market and maybe on your portfolio? I know in Canada, a lot of people are struggling because the structure here of mortgages is a little bit different. It's you can't lock it for 30 years like in the U.S., right? So there you can have 30 years mortgage rate locked. Here in Canada, it's mostly 5 at most or 7. How has that impacted the U.S.?
Yeah, those fluctuating rates like that can hurt people, especially like now. So I'm always a big fan of fixed rates, right? Because of consistency. And I think that goes back to what you were saying, Alice, me sticking to one thing, right? So that's the easiest way for me to stick to it, being locked in with a fixed rate instead of the adjustables, because people do get hurt with the adjustable mortgages, right? We always think that the future is going to be a lot better. And that's what happened during the mortgage crisis of 2008, 2007. People that got these massive mortgages and these loans because they anticipated the future for them being better. And most of those people were in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. And that's the time where you're getting promotions at work, right? Where your business is going to do better. So you're thinking that it's going to be better in the future. So for us, that's why when she asked, I said, we're going to start investing in more again, because over the last year, we've paused things as far as investing because of the interest rates have gone up. And I think that over the next couple of years, especially once we get a new president in, and I'm not going to tell you which president I'm looking forward to.
That was going to be my next question, but
yeah, that could screw things up or it could help things. But I think that depending on who we get in, it could help things a lot. It could help things on the tax front. It could help things on the interest rate front. And Real estate is one of those things where if you buy it in the right way, and fortunately, there's dozens of right ways. But if you buy it in the right way, you can really have peace of mind. You could do well with it. So our criteria when we're buying a property is number one, it has to be a destination area. Traditionally, it has to be something that's been a tourist destination area, and it has had to be a tourist destination area for at least the last 10 years or so, because that means that the economy, the local economy is dependent on tourism, right? Coming in, the laws are not going to change. There's not going to be any drastic laws or anything like that, as you see what happens in like New York now with Airbnbs and things like that, or you see it in Atlanta, right? Because those were not traditionally destination areas. So destination areas being like Destin, Florida, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, Pigeon Forge or Gatlinburg, Tennessee, right? So all of those areas where we have properties at. So that's the first thing. The other thing is there has to be at least 10 million or more people annually going into those areas so that there's enough to sustain your rental property, because people will go in and they'll buy rental properties in areas where there's not this massive influx of tourists that are going in there vacationing every single year. And then you've got to fight to the bottom, meaning you're lowering your price points because there's a limited number of people. And then the third thing is it has to be a place that we are crazy about staying at. Like our children are crazy about
Yeah, you
staying at.
use property, right? As well.
We
And
use the hell
yeah,
out of it. Yeah, we
yeah,
use
nice.
them. So we've got a couple of cabins in Tennessee that we go to. We had them built from the ground up. We've got some beach properties in South Carolina. So yeah, they have to be places where we go to and we feel good about going there. And then the fourth thing is they have to be self-sustaining, meaning the rentals pay for the HOA, pays for the mortgage, pays for anything else, all of the other expenses. So now that property appreciates because someone else is paying for the appreciation. They're paying for all of the expenses, meaning the renters that come in, right? And now we get this asset down the line that our children get to enjoy decades from now. So that's the four criteria right there.
So now back to you working so much. Are you managing everything or is your wife involved in that part more or
Yeah. So,
when do you
um,
sleep?
no, my wife manages our rental property, so she definitely does that. Yeah. But look, Alice, you know what the beautiful thing about it is? You know how we're used to like autoresponders and we're used to, it's the same thing in the rental space. It is exactly the same thing. So as she's going through the apps and she's got these messages that are all automated and check-in messages and checkout messages. And I'm like, oh my God, like we've been doing this in the IM space forever.
Yeah.
The same exact thing. So it's pretty simple once you dive into it and you start to get used to it.
If you could go back in time, is there anything you would change with your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, absolutely. Great questions. There's a couple of things I would do. I would start investing in real estate a lot sooner, like a lot sooner.
Hmm.
In my teens, I would start doing it. The other thing is I would start building out I would have started building out a small team a lot sooner, not a huge team. And I think nowadays, especially with AI, it's easier to build out a small team where you can just go in and crush it. I think we're going to see like the first multi-billion-dollar businesses built out with small teams of 3, 4, 5 people that properly know how to use AI, artificial intelligence. So what I've done is at one point my team was up to 27 to 28 people, and that was before the pandemic. And it's the Pareto principle. You have some people that are really going to pull their weight and they're going to crush it. It's like having affiliates. You have some affiliates that are going to kill it. I had 2,000 affiliates at one point. I look back and I'm like, there's only 40 of these guys that are actually killing it out of 2,000. So we get caught up in this entrepreneurial trap where we think we need a big team, some of us, and then reality kicks in and you're like, man, this person, him, her, and her are the ones that are really pulling the load. They're the ones that are creative. They're the ones that are doing most of the work. They're the ones that I can really count on. Why do I need the other people? And then now, like I said, you have AI and you've got so many smart ways of doing things. You can really do a lot of damage. So right now, my goal is, and this is what I would have done starting all over again. I would invest in real estate sooner. I would have a much smaller team sooner, but core people that are like ninjas that can go in and kill and destroy everything, right? Just 3 people. And then the other thing is I would definitely give up more sooner because it took me a
Mhm.
long
Right.
time before I got comfortable with saying, okay, I'm going to let this person do it. And partially done is better than none. Them doing it 40%, 50%, 60% of the way that I would do it is better than me just having it on my to-do list for weeks or months or some other things, years at a time. Right.
Yeah,
So
and the more they practice, the better they get at it too. So
there they go. They're practicing on your dollar. So they're screwing up on your dollar there every day.
yeah. Hey, we need to, before we wrap up, I think we need to know, obviously, everybody should know where to find you. We see KCF Live behind you. Maybe you'd like to tell us what it's all about.
Yeah, so KCF Live is a 3-day virtual event that we do. We have a lot of fun at these things. We've been doing them for a couple of years now. We started in 2020 and we do 4 a year, and they're virtual events where we teach people how to just come up with, not even come up with ideas, because that just seems like you're making up anything, but taking ideas and turning them into something tangible that you can actually market and you can build a community around and you can build like this evergreen, long lasting business. I'm all about building long lasting businesses, things that are going to be around and that if you wanted to, you could pass it on to someone else. I could say, hey, Yusuf, man, this thing is yours. Or I could sell it down the line if I wanted to. Things where you're going to build a community and you're going to have fun. I'm also about having fun. I think that a lot of our time is spent being too serious. So my personal mission is to impact 100 million people a year in some form or fashion. And that might just be saying, man, that sweater that you have on is amazing. And being genuine in it, not just BSing somebody, right? Just saying it
Yes.
because we feed off of energy, right? So if I go and I say, Alice, that shirt you got on is incredible, like really meaning it because especially females, women know when you're really BS and stuff. I have no idea how they do it. So that's it. So KCF Live is part of that mission right there. We're teaching people how most people want to write a book. And Alice, you being in the space, you know that, right? So one of the
Yeah.
top
So
leaders
it's
of
related to Kindle still, though. Like it's because
it is still related to Kindle. Yep. Kindle cash flow. So we're teaching people how to get their ideas out of their head and put them into a book format in some form or fashion, whether it's an audio book, a Kindle book, a physical book, a course, whatever it might be, coaching and getting it out there.
Yeah, so they're using you teach them to use the book to build a business or like around it or book around the business, whichever way.
A book around the business. Exactly. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
Just on a side note, I'll initially I read it as KFC because I'm dyslexic and I also love KFC.
What's so funny is we have cleaners that come to the house and they will come in and they'll screw with the sign, no matter how many times I say don't screw with the sign, and it will say KFC sometimes. And I don't catch it until like weeks later, and I've done shot like 40 videos and everything
Yeah.
else.
3 hours.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Awesome. Thank
So
you so much, Ty. It's really good to listen to you. I feel motivated myself and inspired because yeah, that your consistency and that all of that it is inspiring. I don't know how else
um,
to put it.
hey, this has been fun. This has been beautiful. I got to get Alice, you're on the show. Yusuf, I got to get you on as well. So let's
Definitely.
make that happen. I would love it.
That would be fun. Definitely.
All right. And if anyone else is looking to be on a podcast, look out. And
Live, right? I'm excited. But I gotta get up. I gotta be ready at 5 a.m. Shit, that's
I know, I feel
already.
bad.
No,
Whenever I
that's okay.
tell people,
Your dog wakes me up anyway. Our dog.
I feel bad about that. Whenever, because she told me I'm on the West Coast. So I think I realized that you were on the West Coast afterwards. I was like, oh my God, maybe I should delete the message.
No,
But
it'll be fun. I
You
am
know,
an
just
early riser.
there you go.
Thank
it's been a pleasure to have you on, Ty.
you.
Likewise, this is good. All right, guys. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Take care.
Okay.
Take it easy.